I figure out I have to divorce my wife. It was a hard decision which was weighing heavy on my shoulders, but ultimately I just knew what I had to do. Well, it did not go as easy as planned, and I learned some absolutely devastating secrets, not only about my ex-wife, but about my daughter as well.
I come from a poor background. To make you understand how bad it was, I could say that I never had any background at all. The only thing I know about myself is that I was dropped off at the doorstep of an orphanage home, and nobody ever came to claim me. I grew up in an orphanage home, and it was really difficult. There were times whereby couples would come seeking kids, and I would wish that I was taken in by a foster family no matter how bad it was. I felt like outside the orphanage would not be as bad as it was inside. To date, I still curse my parents, whoever they are, for dropping me off here. They could have just got rid of me and saved me from the pain of humiliation. I finally turned 18, and I was glad when I had to leave the orphanage. I was uncertain about what life outside would bring, but it did not deter me. I just had the determination to survive. I did everything I could to feed them, and most of them were not so good. I soon joined the wrong gang of friends, and we got invited into a petty thieving group. It did not take long for me to discover and decide that such a part was not meant for me, as one of us got hit by a car when he snatched a lady's purse and was running across the road. I got looking at several things which I could lay my hands on, and you never know what you can do till you're put into a position where you have to do something. So, I got a job at a grocery store. It was a sales boy, and I was good at it. I could convince somebody to buy an item that they never wanted to. I was darn good. But I really never thought much about it. It was when a coworker called me in to my notice that I could help market people's products and get paid for it. That way, I could make way more money. I decided to give it a trial, and this was how Bridge came to be. Bridge is my multi-million-dollar affiliate marketing company where we create awareness about the product of a client. Once the product is sold, there's a certain percentage that comes right to us. It started as something very small, but over the years it turned out to be something massive. I was already a millionaire at 24, and that's when Matilda came into my life. I met Matilda at a bar, and if I had the knowledge I have now, or if I had someone to guide me through life, I would most likely have avoided her from the get-go. I mean, how could a lady whom I met in a bar drinking and smoking, like she competed, turned out to be a great wife? She manipulated me into marrying her, and I only realized what I've gotten myself into after the marriage. Matilda would not lift a finger to cook or clean the house. She always wanted to eat out, and her wastefulness was in a league of its own. I say she manipulated me into marrying her, because she did these things without me asking her to when we were dating. Each time I complained about her reckless spending habit, she would always say that there were men who earned less, but still took good care of their wives without complaining. I've tried enduring for as long as I could, but I could not. I came from a background where I had to struggle and build an empire for myself. And so I don't just spend money like it was plucked off of a tree. You can say that my background affected the way I felt money ought to be spent, and it's not a bad thing. This was why I was not comfortable with Matilda's spending habits. The most disgusting about it was that she did not work. She just stayed at home spending money, and I tried employing various means to get her to develop the sense of value that I had by cutting off the amount I gave her and suggesting she opened up a shop or something. But each time the discussion came up, she would act like I wanted to maltreat her. The whole thing got to a point where I could no longer bear it. I was willing to divorce her even if it meant that she was going to get half of my wealth. I knew I could rebuild my life with the remaining half. It was better than living the rest of my life with her. I was about to present the issue of divorce when she informed me about her pregnancy. Though I never knew my father and who he was, or had a father figure in my life, I've made myself a promise in time past that when the day came, if it ever did, that I was going to be a father. Then I would do better than my father had done, and I became malleable to Matilda's demands. She began getting unfettered access to money, and she spent it however she liked without me questioning. I didn't want to do anything or say anything that could put the lives of my kids in jeopardy. Her pregnancy was her ticket to the living of the kind of life she wanted, not minding the fact that I was a public figure. She would go on to give birth to our children, Jaden and Keisha. The birth of our children made me put in every bit of my time in my work, and this was because I wanted to ensure my children lived a more comfortable life than I ever did. My wife Matilda, on the other hand, was glad that issues about her getting a job were no longer being raised, and I quote, "Giving birth to children and nurturing them is enough work on its own." That's what she'd love to say. The saying that a hooker who gets married is only a vacation proved true in my marriage to Matilda. I soon found out she was cheating on me. Our kids were around 5 years as at the time. It was heartbreaking, to say the least. This was the first woman that I've known intimately, and so the discovery of her cheating lifestyle did not go down well with me. Her excuse was that I had been so busy with my work, to the point I neglected her. There was some truth to what she said, but she was inexcusable. If she felt I was seriously neglecting her, then she should have communicated to me about it. Besides, the reason I worked tirelessly was so I could make life easy for her and the kids. I began the divorce proceedings immediately. While we're at it, she was demanded by the court to carry out a DNA test, just to prove the paternity of our children. I've never felt so uneasy in my life the way I felt at the time. Yes, I wanted to find out if the kids were mine, but on the other hand, I was not ready to face the results. I didn't want to find out at the end of the day that the twin children whom I saw as mine were somebody else's kids. The result came out and it was positive. I was the father to both of my children. The divorce proceedings finally came to an end and Matilda got nothing. Not even custody of our children. The whole divorce thing hit me hard and I decided I was not going to remarry immediately for 2 reasons. I did not want a lady who I was not sure loved me apart from my money, and I wanted to focus on my work and kids. I was willing to do so, though I knew living as a single man in his early 30s would be difficult. Anyways, I did it. I went on dates and would sometimes bring women to my bed, but I never considered remarrying. It was while my kids were in college that my son, who reasons better than his sister, advised me that I should remarry, as the company of a wife would do me good in my old age. His sister, on the other hand, did not welcome the idea at all. She had resented me all these years, simply because I refused to make up with their mother. I ignored her and felt she would come around. I found Trish, a lady whom I am 10 years older than, and though I did not love her so much, I decided after my first marriage never to give 100% of my heart to any woman again. And I can't say she loved me too. The marriage was sort of convenience for the both of us. I offered comfort and financial security, while the companionship of a woman came from her end. I brought her over to the house so she could meet with my children. My son Jaden was warm and welcoming, while my daughter just sat there pressing her phone without bothering to look at the face of the woman who was trying to bond with her. I was embarrassed by her display, which was so disrespectful, so I called her to order. But it made matters worse. She looked at Trish and told her that no woman would ever take the place of her mom. With that, she walked out on us and locked herself in her room. I obviously wanted to react immediately, but Trisha pleaded that I will be patient with her, as this type of thing occurs in cases like that. I let the whole thing slide, and we began planning our wedding ceremony. It was going to be quite the event, which would be strictly on invite only. The reception was going to take place in our house. Everything went according to plan, and those invited honored the invitation except for my daughter, who was at home. She never left her room to come join the celebration that was going on in her own house. I still tried to be understanding, though I felt hurt. Trish tried her best to befriend my daughter, but every effort of hers was met with disdain. So she stopped trying after a while, and she soon began returning hostility with hostility. This was how my home gradually turned into a war zone, as my daughter was also involved in one fight or the other with her stepmom. After failing countless times to make Trish and my daughter see themselves as family and not foes, I began avoiding getting caught up in their arguments. I didn't want it to look like I was picking sides with anybody. My kids graduated from college and I was happy. This is because it is every parent's desire that their children go farther than them in life. I never had the opportunities that they did. Who knows? Perhaps I could have, turned out greater in life than I already am. I threw a party for both of them. This was something that I rarely did, as I was careful how I spent my money. During the party, I promised to gift both of them cars, to get them a mobile, and while my daughter began stating the kind of car she wanted, Jaden shocked me. He asked that I gave him the money for the car so he could invest it in the stock exchange market. His request pleased me a lot. He had the kind of mentality which his father had. He was willing to forego instant gratification and pleasure so he could secure a financial future. Days after the party was over, I knew my children had to start taking responsibility for their lives, as their father had begun doing so when I was younger than they were. I called both of them one morning and proposed that they come work inside of my firm, as it was the empire that they would both inherit after I'm gone. Jaden readily accepted. He was eager to begin taking responsibility for his life, but my daughter, on the other hand, said, "Hey, Dad, I just finished college. I need some time to decide which direction I want to take in life." Well, I didn't want to rush her, though I knew my daughter had become entitled and dependent on my finances over the years, and when Jaden currently works at the firm, he earns his money, while my daughter, who still gets a monthly allowance from me, is either at home involved in an argument with my wife, or she's out visiting some friends. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So today's story is a very interesting one. Why I say that is because it did not get an update for 4 years after the original post, but OP logged back in and decided to give us a 4-year update. And that's not all. We get news. OP is getting ready to become a grandfather. Guys, if you're new to the channel, go ahead and subscribe if you want to support me. It really helps my channel out, and I deeply appreciate that. Let's go ahead and jump into update number 1, which, remember, is 4 years later. Hey guys, I'm getting ready to be a grandfather. Don't make the mistake of just assuming that my grandchild is coming from Keisha. No, Jaden is about to give me my grandchild. He moved out of the house 3 years ago after he had worked in the firm for almost a year. He rented his own apartment and kept on making progress with his life. Keisha, on the other hand, has remained jobless. The usual trend of picking fights with her stepmother has not ceased. Trish would sometimes use Jaden as a yardstick to insult her and term her a failure, while she in turn called Trish a gold digger who got married to a man way older than her because of money. I've done my best to stay off their issue, but it's not worked out so well so far. I was rushed to the hospital from work the other day, and the doctor claimed I was under a lot of stress. He advised that I took out enough time to rest at home. How can I rest at home when that is the headquarters of my problem? Jaden brought a lady to meet me last year whom he introduced as his fiancée. I didn't see anything wrong with her, but I had made a mistake in marriage, and the least I could do was advise my son to choose wisely. Jaden said his woman was everything he wanted his wife to be. Well, it usually seems that way at first, like you found the person custom-made for you. He was successful to a certain degree, and it would not surprise me just to find ladies hovering about him. They would appear to be the home lady whom any man would die to have for a wife. But once you brought them home, it's only a short while before you began to sink. I did not paint Jaden's fiancé like that, though. I only advised him to look beyond what he sees, and after all, not all that glitters is gold. Even the second wife, Trish, whom I got married to, has made my home a living hell, with her constantly just demanding that I throw Keisha out of the house. Since, and I quote, she's old enough to fend for herself. I knew Trish had a point when she said Keisha was old enough to live on her own, and on the other hand, she would not be saying so if she and Keisha got along very well. Jaden got wedded to his fiancée, and there has not really been a complaint since. None that I've heard of, at least. I've recently called Keisha to talk to her. It's been a custom over the years to call either of my children and engage in father-child talk. Our topic of discussion this time around was not on her staying jobless at home. It was on the fact that she was unmarried at this age. I feel I'm not the best person to be asking my daughter about her relationship or her love life. This is something that her mother ought to do, but her mother is no longer with us. And she's the last person who would see her stepmother as a mother figure. Keisha simply said that she had not found the right man to get married to yet. Her reply got me worried, so I drew her attention to the fact that besides the relationship which she had been in that I'm not aware of, I can recall 3 different guys who have gotten her engaged, only to break off with her shortly after. And I quote you, "They don't know how to treat a lady." That was her reply. I tried making her see that if every man who comes across you runs away, then the fault is not from them, Keisha. Keisha refused to see things my way. This was exactly the way her mother behaved, and she did not want to accept the fact that she needed to work on her character, which no man would want to condone. She wanted a man who would swallow her stupidity, just the way her father did, but one thing she failed to realize was that if she was not my daughter, I would have thrown her out a long time ago. Update number 2. Remember, as I said I was preparing to be a grandfather during my last update, well, I became a grandfather of a baby girl 7 months ago. Every woman in my life has not impressed me. Starting from my first wife down to the second and my daughter, I sometimes wonder if the fault is from me. I do hope, though, that Jaden would not let his daughter grow up like his twin sister, Keisha. Speaking about Keisha, there's been a recent development. I finally took strict measures against her by withdrawing the allowance which I give her every month. This was in a bid to get her to work like her twin brother did, and stop living in the shadow of my success. I think I must have made the right move because she recently approached me and told me she had finally decided what she wanted to do with her life. I breathed a sigh of relief at that moment. Then I heard her say that because for the first time in her life, Keisha was talking sense. She said she knew I had built an empire that I wanted her and her brother to inherit after I'm gone. But she wanted to build her empire. She wanted to chase her dream and not live in somebody else's dream. I was impressed by what she said. I asked what she wanted to delve into, and she said she wanted to create her clothing line. Well, it was a good idea. I proposed supporting her, even before she mentioned she needed the support. She noted she needed about $2 million just to get up and running, get herself established, $2 million is a lot of money, even for a millionaire myself. I thought it was wise that she started with something little and built from there, but I didn't want to kill her morale the first time she wanted to do something with her life, so I agreed to give her the money. I delivered on my promise that very day. I called my account manager and had $2 million moved to my daughter's account. I was eager to see what she would make out of the money, and Keisha moved out of the house the very next day after I've given it to her. I did not see her or hear from her again until last week, when she dropped by with the claim that she came to check up on me. I asked about her brand and she noted that everything was moving about smoothly. She claimed that they would soon be launching in just a few months. It was great news for me. At least her stepmother would no longer see her as a failure. She gave me a shirt that carried the inscription of her brand named Kish. Keisha said it was the first her brand had made and she was honoring me with it. Oh boy, that meant a lot. Well, she was still observing her 1-week visit, so I used the opportunity to organize a get-together party, where I would make some important announcements. I had my staff at the office gather at my house, where the party was going on, and midway into it, I demanded the attention of everybody present so I could say something very important. I began my speech by saying how proud of a father my children have made me. I informed them that my daughter's currently working on her brand Kish, and that was the reason I organized this party. I informed them that it was no ordinary party. The statement put everyone to a standstill. I went ahead to inform them that the doctors had advised me to take much time to rest, and so I decided to will my firm to my son Jaden. Everybody applauded my decision except for my wife and daughter. While the rest of the people at the party went to congratulate Jaden, they approached me this night to question my decision. This was the first time they would be agreeing about a thing, and I promised that we would talk about it tomorrow as I needed my rest. As I stop my post here, I just hope I would be able to make my wife and daughter see that I've made the right decision. Update number 3. Things have gone in my home south ever since I handed over the firm to my son. I discussed this with my wife and daughter, and they claimed I was being unfair by not giving them a seat at the table of authority at Bridge, my company. This, by estimation, is not true. I take care of my wife Trish every month, and the fact that my son is now in charge of my company does not mean I would neglect her. She is my responsibility, and I'd continue to make provision for her. As regards to my daughter Keisha, I called to her attention that she had told me in clear terms about how she did not want to, quote, live somebody else's dream. And by that, she meant she did not want to have anything to do with Bridge. I pointed out the fact that she was already building her brand, and it was not right to have her attention divided. My action was to help her focus on her brand or empire, while my Trish was excluded so she could take care of me as the doctor had advised. All I said meant nothing to both Trish and Keisha. They still insisted that I overrule what I've done and get them included. Well, I refused, and my life had been hell ever since, we both of them just teaming up against me left and right. These were people who never saw eye to eye. All it took to make them befriend each other was just me willing to firm to my son. They tried making me see I had made a mistake by putting my son at the helm of affairs. Something happened recently. I was taking a nap 2 days ago when these 2 old ladies rushed into my room. You see, they came to show me a piece of disturbing news about a letter that Jaden had received from the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, accusing one of our newly employed affiliate marketers of false, misleading claims about a weight loss supplement. The FTC claims that our affiliate market has been promoting the product as a, quote, miracle weight loss cure, without any scientific evidence to support her claims. The FTC also accused us of failing to monitor our employees' advertising practices, and of profiting from her deceptive marketing tactics. With the way Trish and Keisha presented the news to me, you would almost think they were happy about the scandal which the company was facing. They rubbed it into my face that I had made a big mistake by handing the firm over to my son. You just handed your firm to him, and he has proven his incapability in less than a month. That's what Trish said. I was not moved by what they were trying to do. I simply reached out to my son to confirm the news, and he said it was true. My wife and daughter began suggesting that I call my lawyer and tell him that I've made the handover decision under duress, and I just want to revoke my will. I barked at their suggestion. They were gradually becoming evil. How could they be happy about my son's misfortune? They only had their eyes fixed on the company, and I informed them that my decision was done with my full consciousness, and I was not going to reverse it because my son was encountering some problems. I warned them to never raise the issue about the will, otherwise I would react in a manner that they would not like. Update number 4. Jaden has dealt with the scandal which was rising. He met with the affiliate marketer, and after listening to her, it turned out that the marketer was just sharing her personal experience with the supplement Jaden. He agrees to cooperate with the FTC and to stop the marketing from promoting the supplement. He also agrees to pay a fine and pledges to ensure that every affiliate marketer who is linked to Bridge participated in a training program to learn about the proper advertising practices. Well, that is for the office. As regards to the house, there have been drastic changes. My wife had been treating me super nice out of lately, and though the whole thing looks somewhat suspicious to me, I can't complain because I need all the peace I can get. Given all that's been going on lately, maybe she's doing so to make me change my mind and bring back Keisha, whom I recently threw out of my house and life. Yeah, you heard that right. I threw my daughter out of my house and my life. For good. Keisha has always found ways to get under my skin. After I've warned her about trying to get me to change my mind about giving her a position in Bridge, she began keeping her distance from me. It got me irritated because she was in my house. It suddenly dawned on me that the 1-week visit which she claimed was to check up on me had extended to weeks. I was concerned for her and her brand, so I called her one day to find out, when she would be leaving the house to go make her dream a reality. I was taken aback when she said she had no place to go. Her statement was confusing because I'd given her money, and she supposedly rented an apartment. Keisha began making excuse after excuse about how she had issues with the apartment and had to move out, yada yada yada. In a nutshell, the whole coming to check up on me was just simply to move back into the house. After listening to her, I promised to give her some money the next day just to rent an apartment. Because, honestly, I did not want her dream of establishing her brand to die. She needed an apartment of her own as she could not create her brand from my home. To my surprise, Keisha said she needed more than money for renting an apartment. She said she needed some money in millions, as her brand was currently facing some challenges. Well, I asked her what the challenges were, and there was no reasonable reply. I asked her to give me a breakdown of, she spent the $2 million, which I've given her before, and she said nothing worth remembering. I was mad and disappointed, to say the least. I'd given her a huge sum of money, and the only thing she could create was a $50 shirt with her brand crested on it. I'd been patient with her for far too long. I threw her out of my home, and I warned her to never come back, never come close to me again. Otherwise, I'd have her arrested. I would be visiting my doctor in 3 days to have myself checked out, as I noticed that I sleep a lot nowadays, forget things, and just feel tired. When you have a daughter like mine, you're bound to be exhausted. Update number 5, final update of the post. You would not believe what I'm about to tell you, as I'm still finding it hard to believe myself. Remember, I was planning on going to see my doctor? Well, I did see him. Or rather, I was taken to him. It so happened that I lost consciousness before my appointment day and I was rushed to the hospital. I was placed in the intensive care unit as I got into a coma. I was in a coma for a month before I regained consciousness. After I had regained consciousness, I was told that my wife barely even came to see me. The person I found beside me was my son Jaden, and I could tell he was worried about something else other than my situation. He went on to tell me that he had been engaged in a legal battle with my daughter and her stepmother. They had dragged him to court the moment I got into a coma. They claimed that my son Jaden had manipulated me into cutting my daughter away from me, and just willing the company to him. While he was yet to speak, the doctor came in and told me that a high dosage of atorvastatin. It was detected in my system. The doctor had prescribed the drug for me to help reduce the risk of a heart disease, but he claimed I had been taking an overdose, and that's why I experienced those side effects which I did. I informed the doctor that my wife had been the one administrating my pills, and all of that to me, she claimed she followed the prescription to the T. The doctor then claimed my wife was to blame. My wife and daughter were not aware of my recovery, and I had my son keep it so. I would show up in court to defend my will and file for an arrest against her. That was exactly what I did. I showed up in court on the last day of the hearing, and my wife Trish and my daughter Keisha were shocked to hear from me, being called to the witness stand just to testify for my son. While testifying, I was shocked to see a familiar face in the courtroom. It was my ex, Matilda. I wondered what she was doing in court, and I informed the court that I was not under any form of compulsion when willed my company to my son. I informed the court that the symptoms which I've experienced were a result of my wife giving me an overdose of what my doctor had prescribed. The judge ruled in favor of my son Jaden, and my daughter Keisha left with her mother in shame. Her mother had been present in her life all these years, and I got Trish arrested, and she confessed that she had been involved in the whole thing with my daughter. I immediately had my daughter arrested, and she claimed that she was misled by her mother, who had been involved in her whole life all these years. Her mother's currently in hiding while Trish and Keisha are awaiting trial. I'm equally in the process of divorcing my second wife, Trisha. It's funny how every woman in my life is just not seeking my good. My son Jaden has moved into my house with his family. This is so that I could get my comfort from my grandson.
The absolute devastation OP had to go through in this story. I mean, imagine dropping into a coma, finding out that one of your loved ones did this to you, and ultimately having to send them to jail for it. This story was absurd, wild, and a total roller coaster of emotions, but I want to hear from you guys directly. Say, for instance, you were in OP's shoes, and you were in this exact scenario. How would you cope? Drop your comments down, let me know about the people in this story, how you feel, let's hear it. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day, so if you want to drop by, figure out what story we're doing, and go ahead and kill some time, here's the spot. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.